Hello everyone, welcome to Anime No Mi, and thank you for joining us for another One Piece video. In today's video, we're going to talk about Luffy's powers that have been revealed in early leaks of chapter 1047. As the great battle between Luffy and Kaido continues in Wano, Luffy has just been showing more and more ridiculous and extremely powerful powers, really, in his new Gear 5th transformation. But it seems in these early leaks that he may have gotten even more new abilities for his battle against the Yonko. So today we're going to talk about all the new revelations that have been made in the first leaks of chapter 1047 of the manga, and possible things that may change for the Straw Hat Pirate and the world of One Piece. But before we dive into the video, if you're new to the channel, we'd be absolutely honored if you consider leaving us a like, or even subscribing with a comment letting us know what you thought of the video. It really helps us out and motivates us to make more content. And if you'd like to help out the channel in a bigger way, consider sharing the video with a friend. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So friends, as we know, the world of One Piece is changing with Luffy's new powers. After all, we know that he has the power, or at least the ability, to change the entire world, because we know that this is one of the very things that the world government fears about Luffy's devil fruit. We saw this fear discussed when we first saw the approach of the giant elephant Zunisha when she was near Wano, and we were told by the Gorosei that there was a legendary devil fruit, a power considered even ridiculous when awakened, but it had not been awakened in quite some time. Now, there were a lot that speculated that we could have been talking about Luffy's devil fruit, but it really hadn't been confirmed. But when the power was later revealed to be Luffy's devil fruit power, we also learned that it had its name changed during history. So of course this means that the fruit we've always known as the Gomu Gomu no Mi was actually the creation of the Gorosei of the past, and it was never really this rubber fruit. But now we found out that this fruit's actual name is the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika, but its true powers only emerge after the fruit's difficult awakening. So when it's not awakened, it just pretty much seems to give the user an elastic or rubbery body. So the Gorosei, and thus the world, just pretended that it was a rubber fruit and made really no one interested in this power. I mean, after all, if you think about all of the wondrous powers that are out there among the devil fruits, a rubbery power just doesn't really measure up to something like lightning, or maybe even something more powerful like creating earthquakes. But now that we've seen the truth, we see that Luffy is facing this great battle against Kaido, and he's managing to overcome the powers of the Yonko slowly and surely. But not only that, it shows that there's some new revelations in chapter 1047 where we have brought up the following topics. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the title of the chapter, which is going to be called The Sky of the Capital, a chapter that already shows us that we're really approaching the flower capital, and Onigashima is getting not only just further and further into Wano, but could be looming over the very capital and the moment where it's going to drop. Now, because we're speculating on leaks, we have to know that we might have to do a little bit of analysis and explanation in detail on the various topics that are brought up and how they may affect the ongoing battle that's happening in Onigashima. So after the title, we'll talk about the color spread that we have, where we see that the Straw Hats aren't on the floating island, but rather on a beach in Wano with Momonosuke. But he's still shown in his transformation as a large dragon, meaning we still haven't seen what he looks like out of his dragon form. The next topic that's brought up is a flashback that shows us Oden's castle when it was on fire after Kaido had attacked it, and we see a moment when Momonosuke had decided to travel to the future. The next topic that's brought up is that we hear about Luffy using a new attack with a huge ray, because remember at the very end of the last chapter we see Luffy grabbing a lightning bolt, and the attack is dubbed as the Gomu Gomu no Thunder. After that, the next topic says that Kaido will actually confirm that Roger was not a devil fruit user, which is a really large thing that's been speculated throughout the community for a long time. Along with that, it's also stated that Kaido says that skills, quote unquote, are not necessary to dominate the world. After that, the topic is brought up that because of the flames, Orochi somehow manages to escape Komurasaki's seed prism nails and manages to transform again. And finally, the last topic that's brought up in our initial series of leaks is that Luffy seems to be capable of a huge punch, making his hand bigger than Onigashima's castle overall, and that he is about to attack Kaido. So now that we've covered the various topics brought up in the first leak, let's talk about what will be happening in the chapter overall and what that might mean for the current events and the outcome for the raid on Wano. After all, we see that Kaido really seems to be respecting Luffy more and more in the fight, and he may be on the verge of understanding that Luffy is Joy Boy. Contrasting what's going on between Luffy and Kaido, we also seems that Momonosuke had received a mission in this flashback that we see in Wano Castle, and Yamato had warned about the danger of Onigashima's fall. After all, the island may not be able to keep flying once Kaido is defeated, or at the very least it may start falling because Kaido is so worn out from his fight against Luffy. So as the Yonko is getting more and more injured and running low on energy, he might have been able to keep the island up previously, but we know that as these clouds are starting to fall apart, apart, someone is going to need to keep the island in the sky. So in this moment, Momonosuke is going to have to master his fear so that he can produce his own flame clouds just like Kaido can in his devil form, and maybe even have that moment where he keeps the island aloft, much like his father did with his vassals when he was being boiled during that hour. And even if Momo doesn't keep the island completely aloft, he at the very least is going to have to change its direction. After all, with everybody celebrating in the flower capital, there would be so much loss of life if the island was to fall on somewhere that was populated. So it may be this is the moment where Momo's going to have to step up and show us what he's got. And also, Momonosuke has to know that he's at a moment where he's going to have to overcome his own limits, because this was the mission given to him while he was young, and even Luffy expecting him to do his part. So Momo's going to want to step up because he knows that Luffy is giving his best on the rooftop, so he's going to have to do his part so that the whole raid succeeds. If we also see then a change in Kaido's powers, or something starts to falter, this may also be an additional catalyst to get Momonosuke to finally do what he needs to and keep this island from falling. Now, when you think back, we know that Luffy had told Momonosuke to protect the island that was getting closer and closer, or at least change the direction. After all, that was the reason Momonosuke had himself aged up to his adult form, and it could be this very moment that really means the end of the battle is approaching. But with that said, we also have to consider something. Let's say Luffy is really about to hit Kaido with a giant punch, and his hand is bigger than Onigashima's castle. If Luffy also asks Momonosuke to protect the island, we really only have two options that arise. Now, the first possibility is that Luffy thinks that when he hits Kaido, it's going to destroy part of the island or the castle, and knocking down several parts of this big island that should be stopped by Momonosuke so it doesn't hit anyone. However, there's also a possibility that Luffy thought that he was a lot closer to defeating Kaido than he really was, and that next blow would bring the Yonko down. But again, we know that as the stories played out, this wasn't the case. But now that we see how Luffy may be turning the tide, this may be the reason why Luffy said this to Momo, because if he's able to bring Kaido down, we already know his devil fruit powers are starting to fade due to fatigue. So he maybe expected, he being Luffy, expected that when he can finally deliver that big blow, that is actually going to be the moment that Momo's going to step up. Now, after this, whether Luffy becomes a Yonko or not, we don't necessarily know if that's the case. But we do know that overall, once the word gets out, he's at least going to be one of the most feared pirates in the seas of One Piece. Now, aside from the fight with Kaido, we also have to go back to the revelation where Kaido tells Luffy a little bit about Roger. Now, Kaido had to have met Roger in the past, and maybe even had a chance to face off against the Pirate King, because we know that Kaido was a part of Xebec's crew, and Xebec's crew was defeated by Garp and Roger. So Kaido goes on to reveal the fact that the Pirate King did not possess devil fruit powers, which shows that there is a possible fact that Roger couldn't carry out the final mission or do what was necessary on Laugh Tale because he didn't have Nika's fruit power. After all, we know that this fruit is apparently what brings Joy Boy back to the world, but we really don't know how that works yet. And also, when Roger had heard about Joy Boy's return through some of the Sea Kings, and then with what we see happening on Laugh Tale, where he said he'd love to have lived in the same time as Joy Boy, he could have been talking about Luffy, or at least the next time that Joy Boy was going to return to the world. So if this is the case, we could imagine that Luffy's fate might have already been set, and that Shanks could have very likely known about the Sun God fruit and just didn't know who was going to inherit it, let alone Luffy being the one to take on the powers of Nika. But once he saw his captain's will in the young man and have him say some of the same things Roger had said, he understood that he now needed to bet on the new generation and allowed Luffy to keep the fruit. Now, as we go through these new chapters, it seems like we're getting little by little more of this backstory and possible connections that Luffy may have been the person through all of his hard work to unlock this fruit, and it may have been traced and written a long time ago. After all, when we heard about the Sea Kings talking about Joy Boy, they were also talking about Shirahoshi, who of course we believe to be Poseidon. In addition to that, we also have Joy Boy's return described in the poneglyphs, and even about possibly the origins and maybe powers of what Joy Boy has. Because if you think about it, there are many different groups in the One Piece world that have been awaiting the return of Joy Boy, or at least he lives on through their mythology, and many may know if he would return, but not how or when. But Odin, yes, here's our connection to Wano, after traveling with the Pirate King and maybe even some of the things he learned while on Whitebeard's crew, he found out more about Joy Boy and also found out when he would return. So when he returned to Wano, he went there to prepare to receive this important character who has a power and a mission that really still hasn't been revealed. So Momonosuke's time jump and the predestined battle that Odin had talked about in his journal and had also been talked about by the Scabbards may have been predestined for that that exact moment. So it is possible that Momonosuke time traveled to the time and place he went to, specifically because at this moment in time, Joy Boy would return and would in fact run into him quickly, even though he still hadn't returned, because of course Luffy hadn't awakened his fruit yet. Another thing we're hoping to see is that Kaido should also reveal what connection he really has with Joy Boy, or at least what he learned from King about it, what he discovered with Joy Boy, and the real reason for the Yonko being in Wano and wanting the One Piece. After all, Kaido said that there was something special, something that was gonna happen in Wano, and it was because it was Wano that was why he was there. This may also tie into the fact that he does talk about that skills are not necessary to dominate the whole world. So Kaido could have also been just talking about Roger, who had a lot of power and did manage to reach that last island without a devil fruit power. But this may also be one of the reasons why Kaido shows his respect for Roger, because Roger, without the benefit of devil fruit powers, crossed blades with all of the most powerful pirates and marines of the age and still came out on top. So this may be the place why Kaido might have thought that Roger had become Joy Boy in a way. This may also explain that Kaido hasn't fully accepted the idea that Luffy could be Joy Boy, or even accept the transformation, because he might have thought that the Chosen One or Roger or Joy Boy had already come and done something about Joy Boy's mission. Because even with the little that we do know that Joy Boy has many missions to carry out, several of which were left over from his last run, and many are waiting for his return so that they can help and save people and bring a dawn to the world. So this may be that just we're waiting on the Sun God. After all, the Sun God's also been awaited by many other characters. But with these new abilities, this may also bring the possibility that Luffy may actually need to go to get the One Piece to achieve his dream, but before he could do that, he may have to do something to help fulfill Joy Boy's mission, because it would be Joy Boy's mission that would ultimately fulfill the final mission and goal of getting to the One Piece and beyond. And for a moment, let's think about what this final mission might entail. First off, we'd have to have Luffy go back and meet again with Shirahoshi, because Joy Boy and Poseidon were supposed to meet again, which was said by the Sea Kings. We also have to know that Noah has to be brought to the surface so the fishmen can see and live underneath the sun, which is gonna have to be a huge battle. I mean, I don't know how it couldn't be, because they're gonna be coming up from underneath the red line, which just above is Marijois. After that, we also have to consider the fact that nobody's gonna just take this lying down. So this becomes an entirely huge mission, and something that Roger just really couldn't accomplish in his time. And even if Roger did possess the strength, it doesn't mean that he was considered or chosen to become Joy Boy, because it may be this power of Nika's fruit and this Joy Boy where Luffy's able to bring people to him and inspire him, and only with that ability to bring the world together could this whole plan come together. But for now, we'd love to know what you think about the leaks. Do you think that we're gonna get a little bit more backstory? What do you think is gonna happen once the whole battle is over? Let us know in the comments below. So friends, as we get ready to end our video, we want to thank you so much for watching until the very end. Make sure you comment on any themes or ideas that you'd like to see in future videos. And also, since you made it this far, give us a like as you head out to take on the rest of your day. Hope to see you all in our next video, and let's keep sailing this giant sea together. Take care.